Hello, my name is Richie Hinton. I'm the CEO of Landscaping Victoria. I just wanted to take this opportunity to announce that we have reached an incredible milestone in the history of the Front Garden podcast, ticking over 75,000 downloads. That's an incredible achievement for what started off as a side experiment really during COVID. We're really proud to have hit that target, and we thank all our guests, our incredible hosts, Chris Weiss, Tyson Owen, and now Adam Hompas. Thanks to all our listeners, and look forward to another 100 plus episodes. And now, without further ado, let's get into the next episode.
Welcome to the Front Garden, brought to you by Coolabah Turf. Visit Victoria's premium instant turf supplier at coolturf.com.au.
Welcome to the Front Garden podcast, brought to you by Landscaping Victoria, proudly supported by Coolabah Turf. I'm your host, Adam Hompas, and this show is for anyone who lives and breathes landscaping. In the studio, we have Mitchell Williams-Kelly and Jaimee Olsen from Green by Nature. Welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Absolute pleasure. So, Green by Nature was a merger of 4 companies, including Green Options, Recreational Services, Skyline Landscape Services, and Super Gardens, united to bring together their strengths, which meant in 2023 they became the new brand of Green by Nature. As always, I want to start off how things came about with Green by Nature.
So it was predominantly brought up with, obviously, there was 4 different businesses across Australia and New Zealand. They've all had around the same amount of time in the business, around 30 years. So collectively, we say there's just over 120 years experience between them. Green Options, who predominantly, they started in New South Wales. They were the original company that kind of initiated the merger. They were starting up quite strong in Queensland and had a bit of a footprint in Victoria as well. But obviously, the legacy company that I represented, Super Gardens, who have worked really closely in Victoria and with Landscape Victoria, obviously in the past, that was their first point of call. So those two came together, and then very quickly after that, you had Skyline as well, who were all across the East Coast, and then straight after that was New Zealand Rec Services. So it started in 2021, as you said, but it took about a year or two to realise, well, it's really, it's nice to have all these companies come together. You've obviously got more resources and more that you can invest into clients and value for clients. But it was only until probably 2023 we realised how we're going to, what's the best way to strategise this? And that's when they separated into 2 business units across Australia. You've got what they call specialty services, which I represent for Victoria as a state manager. And then you've got landscape services, which was a lot of what predominantly Skyline were doing. A lot more open space, a lot more council, commercial stuff as well, which they've got a really good skill set in. So that's how we separate, and that's how we've realised growing forward and what our targets are, that's where we're going to be best placed.
So, Mitchell, the merger obviously helped because you've got all these different companies coming in with different skill sets that can help create Green by Nature to what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. New Zealand Rec Services, what they were obviously as our New Zealand counterpart, they kind of do a bit of everything. But we've realised, I think, between the 3 different businesses that are across Australia that they had different clienteles, they had different things that they specialised in, and it was kind of really bringing all those in together to kind of get the most out of it, which has been really positive now. It's obviously a few years of going through all the motions, and bringing them all together has obviously been quite challenging with, their different systems and processes. But we're starting to really see the benefits of that, which has been really positive. So
I'm sure it would have been a long time, many years, as you said, to bring it together and have it flourish to where it's got to.
Yeah, I think my understanding is it was something that was in the pipeline for a while. But then very quickly it all started to come to fruition, and the wheels were in motion very quickly when we hit that 2021 mark. So
now, Jaimee, to you, so you're on the ground.
Yes.
Still, is that so? Describe your role with Green by Nature, please.
So my current role is landscape. So I'm actually a horticulturalist within the landscape team. But I was previously a head gardener at one of our other sites, which is when I first met Mitchell. He was my old manager. And I started off as a head gardener in the company and kind of slowly worked my way through and ended up being asked to come onto the landscaping team to be a part of that and help out horticulturally, just kind of helping out in areas where they could see little gaps coming through with placing of plants and kind of just making sure that standards are staying consistent throughout the company, especially in the sense of that merger, just making sure that everyone, has the same kind of consistency across the installation of landscapes.
So Jaimee's being very modest here. I think she's our
It sounds like it. Yeah, it sounds like that. I know, you can hear it, but that's good. That's good. That shows how humble, but there's a lot of passion there. So with obviously the horticulture side of things, you guys also do the construction as well?
We do.
So you've got 2 tiers or 3 tiers?
Yeah, well, that's what Mitchell was talking about just then about bringing in Green Options and Skyline coming together. We really, focus on the landscaping side of things across multiple sites, like larger commercial sites like Essendon Fields Airport, Avalon Airport, even some of your kind of warehousing places like Stockland and things like that too. And, implementing different techniques of applying those landscapes and making sure that, as I say, that they're consistent across the board, that we're keeping up those standards.
So when you say you've been involved in things like Stockland and things like that, so what does that entail? The design, construct, maintain?
Yes, pretty much. So I will be there for example, with Stockland, a plant out just of some little natives like lamandras and things like that, and gardenia, and then implementing, making sure that the irrigation is as it should be, making sure that the schedule and timing of that is as it should be, and then going through a 13-week maintenance plan before we then hand it over to the maintenance team to maintain it from thereafter.
Right.
So it's kind of that establishment period is 13 weeks, and we just ensure that things are going as they should so that we can hand it over to maintenance and have it be clean and
Usually
clear.
helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
So that's awesome. That means that things are going to run smoothly. And obviously, Mitchell, you're the state manager. So are you involved in organising and programming all these schedules?
I have oversight, but we've got a team, obviously, of dedicated managers, either in the landscaping or the grounds maintenance parts of the business. So we do actually have 2 state managers, and I think it's like I touched on the start with the 2 different business units. So I look after specialty service. So landscaping in Victoria falls under that, whether it be softscapes or hardscapes, as well as our irrigation team. And then we've obviously got our sports turf team, which is a huge part of the business. So we do a lot of the AFL clubs, their training facilities. We do stuff with the MRC.
Did see that.
Cricket Victoria, we do Junction Oval. We've got 1 golf course here, but we've got another 8 or so across the country. But in the landscaping space, we've got our 2 senior project managers. One's our landscape manager, and then we've got obviously a team of 20 that falls under that as well. So
there you go. And just organising those things is phenomenal, I'm glad you brought that up, because I actually wanted to ask you, Prepared Ninja Stadium, what type of preparation is needed for something like that? Like, as in everything from the design to the construction to the drainage?
So with Ninja Stadium, it's interesting because we only started work. Tasmania was essentially the last state for us to have any involvement in. And obviously Bellerive, or Ninja Stadium as they call it now, that's only one that we took over the maintenance and the turf contract for probably 2 years ago, I believe, or just a year and a half ago. The turf installation was obviously done between the parties of both ourselves and external subcontractors as well, given the state of it. We do the same types of works and resurfacing and returfing of cricket wickets and sports grounds all across the country. That one's quite unique because we were in conjunction with other parties through the process. So,
how do you go with drainage on something like that? Like with as I said, like, is there a series of aggies? How do you make sure that the grass is going to stay how it is?
There's a lot of different components, and it really, obviously, I think depends on the budget that the client has. It's very different if it's an international sporting facility like Ninja. So there's a lot of components that go into the drainage when you're going through, obviously, the initial stages of planning it out, and it's obviously depending on how big your drainage gaps and your slits are on it, as well as what kind of drainage system and like material breakdown you'll have. So you've obviously got, which is quite predominant, like the perched water table as well, with having your ag your coarser material as well as then your finer sand as well. So your perch water table is pretty standard across most sporting facilities in Australia. So a lot of work goes into it. Obviously, there's a lot of different parties involved from the design and architecture point of it, as well as obviously carrying out the works as well. So,
and is that in-house, the design and architecture of it, or is it contracted out?
That's contracted out generally. We do on smaller sports grounds. We'll obviously do a lot of it in-house, but for those that have major contractors and design companies, obviously carrying out the civil components and the design components.
Okay, and Jaimee, you're involved in that too, in terms of the laying of the turf and all that type of thing at these
not
arenas,
for that particular site I wasn't, but in our arenas I have not been, but in other larger sites like across Essendon Fields, which is one of my kind of home bases, let's say, I have done a lot of the turf laying and kind of scarifying and top dressing and things like that. As I say, during that 13-week maintenance period, it's a part of my role to ensure that those things are going as smoothly as they should, and making sure that if the turf needs to be mowed before I can top dress it again, like I had with one of my other sites last week, I have to go and communicate that with the turf guys and make sure that we're on the same wavelength, let's say.
And how big is the area that you deal with in Essendon Fields? Like, how many thousands of square metres are we talking? Because the only reason I'm asking is I'm residential landscaping.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know what it's like, for anyone who doesn't know, managing and controlling something like that.
Well, it's a lot. Let's say it is a lot. Honestly, the actual square meterage of it might be a better question for Mitchell.
Not sure of that, but Essendon Fields are a really interesting one. They're kind of for super gardens, obviously the business that we came from originally. One of our kind of founding clients that we had, obviously it's owned by the Lynn Fox family. It was a huge part of why Super Gardens was successful, obviously 20, 25 years ago, because we had them as a major client. So when we started there was only a couple of buildings through that whole estate, which obviously has an airport connected to it. And we've kind of helped from a landscaping perspective build it from the ground up essentially. What it is now, I think they have over 100 different vendors in there. Obviously the airport runs both like domestic and some commercial flights as well. And there's obviously a lot more land there that they're looking to develop as well, which is pretty exciting for us. So it's massive. It's definitely one of our biggest clients we've got and long-serving clients that we have as well. So
Mitchell, the move to go into, obviously it's commercial landscapes that you guys are in, was that from the Super Garden model? Obviously having that relationship with Lynn Fox, did that kind of start it to keep it in commercial? Yeah,
so to speak on from a Super Gardens perspective, it was started with 3 founding owners, or 2, and then a third guy, Ian Griffiths, came on board as well. They did residential for the first 10, 15 years, I believe. But then obviously as their little business grew, they obviously expanded and started focus more on commercial. From that, I think it obviously just continued to grow. And I think the business, all 4 business units or original businesses, were always commercial, majority commercial by the time we all came together in the merger. I think it's something that we're not ever ruling out that there will be, residential opportunities and projects that we take on. This still is the really rare one that we still do assess, obviously depending on the client and how we can actually, are we going to contribute enough value to them, and is it going to be commercially viable as well? So, but it is certainly a juggling act. We've got, I don't know how many, there's probably over 1,000 different clients we've got across Australia and New Zealand. So it's a huge thing for us, and it's definitely a tricky one to navigate. But I think there was a lot of confidence in knowing that the business units could do it, I think, as part of the acquisition. So
how do you take care of the clients like that? Like, how do you have dedicated teams with certain areas, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we from a management perspective, we've got all of our allocated contract managers who will have a portfolio as well, and that includes obviously in the landscaping, but in the grounds maintenance, which is a bigger portion of the business, you'll have a contract manager that might have a portfolio of anything from 5 to 15 clients, depending on the size of them and what the requirements are for those. Some of them are very straightforward. We might just go in on a frequency base and mow or garden, but then there's other ones that have a lot of landscaping components to what their contract is outside of the normal contract. As well, they'll have reporting requirements, whether it be fortnightly or monthly meetings and reports that they provide, as well as KPI metrics that we have to produce. So it is case by case, and we do look at it quite granularly in terms of the client to make sure that we are actually servicing them correctly and giving everything that we can for them.
Yeah, of course. So on site, Jaimee, to keep things running smooth, are there particular programs you guys are using out in the field to sort of keep things streamlined?
Definitely, yeah. So it's something I've implemented on certain sites with the help of Mitchell and other team members, implementing seasonal schedules like spraying for pests, composting, even just, general fertilizing schedules as well. And just making sure there's a consistency across that. Like, I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, Mitchell, I had a meeting with Michael down at Sandown and we went over that. And yeah, we just set up a nice seasonal schedule for him just to make sure that he was confident in, laying that out. And that is the case, obviously dependent on the client as well. That's a part of our monthly meetings. We liaise with the client as well. Not us directly on site, but we will get feedback from our site managers and implement anything that they're concerned about, any little concerns, that come up throughout the garden, or anything they might be looking at to install in the future. So, yeah, it is definitely a part of the role.
And the New Zealand, Jaimee, do you go over there at all?
I would love to. Yeah. I'm actually am from there. So if the opportunity ever arises,
really?
Mitchell,
I can't hear it.
No, not at all. No, I came over when I was like 3, so the accent's completely gone now. But yeah, I definitely would love the opportunity to go over. Mitchell knows that I would love that.
Yeah. It is something that it was always a big selling point, I think, for the businesses coming together, was that opportunity of different roles in different states, and it's something that we are pretty proactive in. I think a good example of that's obviously our turf component. We've got guys who work at most of the major cricket clubs and grounds around Australia, so we do a lot of seasonal rotations and experiences for them, and that's something that we're trying to obviously trickle down and incorporate into other parts of the business as well. So you've set me up here. We'll certainly agree to it. So I think that's a really good thing. That's probably is one of the next steps for us, is that trans-Tasman kind of
the
culture share.
So, on the big words, it's good.
Nice.
How did you, Mitchell, get those contracts for the cricket clubs?
It kind of started, I think, it is case by case. So Green Options, like I said, is the original company. They had a massive specialisation in sports turf. At the time, I think, and they still do, a lot of the NRL clubs, some of the AFL training facilities, New South Wales Cricket, they have had long-term contracts and agreements with these clubs and organisations. And so that was the original kind of focus point of the business as a whole, was sports turf. Although we're very prevalent and obviously in grounds maintenance, landscaping as well. That was kind of what their expertise were, and that what they were bringing to the party. And so it was quite quick from that they trickled on, and obviously had some connections in Victoria with Cricket Vic, and then there's 4 of the AFL clubs that we were doing as well, and then over in Perth, and then kind of just snowballed from that, really. So that is one of the examples, I think, of one of the original businesses really having a lot of focus on what they specialised in.
Doing my research on you guys, I'm like, these guys are massive. Like, look at what they've got going on. This is going to be intriguing. This is awesome. So one thing I did see, wanted to ask Mitchell, is the sustainability initiatives and policies. So do you want to explain to us exactly how that goes?
Yeah, so our current policy we have, I think we initiated that in 2024, and we've got it until 2027, I believe. We have, obviously, with it kind of aligns with our ISO accreditation, which is our current accreditation we've got. We are actually going for B Corp certification, which is, not sure if you're familiar, it's kind of a new one that's kind of come. It was quite prominent in all kinds of businesses, not just in our industry, in the UK and America. It's a long drawn-out process, as you can imagine.
As in the ISO process, or? Yeah,
well, B Corp certification, which is kind of an extension or an advancement of that ISO accreditation that we've currently got. So it's probably been about a year-long process, and there's you do a lot of quizzes, you get a lot of review summaries, and then they give you like a scale, like a rating system, and then you got to come back and do it again. So why that's important to this conversation is that that is kind of aligns to what our environmental and sustainability and community targets and initiatives are, because obviously now we're obviously being monitored and managed, and we've got to provide data on how we're actually meeting these targets. So there's a lot in our EGM plan that we have there and initiatives that are pretty common, but there's a lot of them that are also very unique as well. So say with our carbon emission targets, we're trying to reduce it down to about 15%.
Yeah.
There's things that I think that are a funny one that we had was with our sustainability factors. When we all merged together, we didn't realise everyone's wearing different uniforms. You've got over 2,000 staff. What's the impact of all those people with all these different work polos and things? And obviously you've got to get rid of them all. So we teamed up with a company called Apparel, so they could recycle and renew, because it was like 10,000 different bits of clothing and uniforms that we had to recycle.
Cotton On warehouse.
Yeah, exactly. So they recycle and refurbish a lot of that into something else as well. So that's one of those targets we've got. We've obviously got with our community targets as well, that we want to be doing enough volunteering and reach outs as well, which is, I think we're trying to do, I think it's 1,000 hours a year or something that we're putting into outreach programs, community programs as well.
So that's how, Mitchell, you're trying to work on the sustainability side of things. The things like that, as you said, by recycling the old uniforms. Yeah, exactly. And that kind of gets your accreditation, your points up.
Yeah. There's also with carbon emissions is a huge one, obviously, and we'd all know that in this industry. It's you're working in a green space, but there is obviously greenhouse emissions as part of what you do. So trying to reduce that as much as possible. A big part of that is obviously going electric as much as we can. Robotic mowers is something that we're at the forefront within our industry as well, which we're really proud of, and that obviously has a positive impact. Trying to recycle the amount of waste that we have, and obviously reduce the amount that's going to waste, and it's more going to green waste as well. Factors and initiatives like that we're really trying to focus on.
I definitely want to come back to the AI mode mowers in a sec, because I was quite intrigued by that. But Jaimee, on site, obviously with sustainability, what practices do you put into place to make sure that things are as sustainable as possible? Yeah,
well, one thing would definitely be minimising green waste by utilising plants as much as we can for transplanting, or even finding that we're, propagating them in certain spaces and popping them in like a little nursery on site just for potential future use. Like at one of our sites at the Wargraves, we've got pieces, some seed pods from an oak tree that we've planted aside just to have extras in case we need them.
How good.
And then in a general sense, we do actually have a lot of recycled irrigation through a lot of our sites. So recycled plastic that's then made into irrigation line, which is something I haven't seen in many other companies before. So that's really, really awesome that we're doing that. And then another one is natives. So a sustainability factor with natives. There's certain sites like Latrobe that have a quota yearly for the amount of natives that we need to plant on site, just to keep up the ecosystem and, the kind of symbiosis of that area. So, there's definitely a lot of factors. Each site is different, but I would say one of the biggest consistencies that I see is the recycled irrigation, which is, I think, a pretty big kind of groundbreaking thing that not a lot of people are doing.
Well, when you said recycled irrigation, I thought you meant just water recycle, not the actual
line. Yeah, the actual line.
Is that a new thing, or has it been around for a while?
It's new. In the last probably 6 months to a year, I've seen it implemented on a lot of our larger commercial sites. But Mitchell would be the one to ask about when we kind of made the transition to that.
Yeah, I think we started going through the initiative as about 2 years ago.
Yeah. So now I'm seeing it, about 2 years later, you're seeing it consistently across 95% of the sites.
And I'm sure you guys would have kilometres worth of irrigation going through your sites. So that's really good. I haven't actually heard of that. So another good thing under the Green by Nature belt. But with the AI mode, lawnmowers, Mitchell, explain to me about those, because they look pretty cool.
Yeah, so we've got one in the business. It was about a year ago now that there was an American company wanted to bring it over and trial it, and so we trialed it out for a long period of time. There was a lot of trial and error, you could say, with it as well, and we thought that Essendon Fields is a really good opportunity for us to trial it in Australia, because it's the first one that was actually outside of America for a fully robotic zero-turn mower. So it's a 60-inch. It's the A60 of their fleet that they've got. It's the first one that they've brought into or outside of America. We thought that Essendon Fields are great because if it can work there, given that there's a runway and you've obviously got all the restrictions of having an airport on site with no one operating it, we thought that if it can work there, then we know that it's got a lot of success and viability anywhere. So it's a fascinating thing. It's really exciting. Like I said, we trialled it for about 6 months in and are fully incorporated into our team, essentially based, our maintenance team based at Essendon Field. So it's a bit daunting when someone drives past the field and see it just mowing itself.
I've got a picture in my mind of just on the news, aeroplane coming down and this riderless mower coming across. Anyone who doesn't know us residential guys, how big are we talking?
So it is, like I said, it's got a 60-inch deck. It can do, I think it's up to about 6 to 7 hours per day. It still needs to require obviously someone to drive it between the areas that it's maintaining. But then the opportunity that you've got then is then that person can be more focused on doing the detailing, a bit more quality assurance if they could do any reporting, brush cutting, cleaning up the area while it's running around. It's all set up by GPS. So obviously you've got to plot out and you've got to manually set up and mow the areas that it would do the first time or the perimeter. And then from there, we can do it.
Okay. So you'll ride where it needs to be. It sets up the parameters and then it's kind of off by there.
Set and forget.
Is there sort of specific programs that you have to run it on the back end? So in the office, is there something that you need to?
It's actually done on Bluetooth. So they've got their own system and platform that they use, which is connected to your phone as well. So it's pretty impressive. We've tried to be at the forefront of any of that kind of ingenuity in the past as well with robotic mowers as well. So I think we've had them incorporated into multiple business units now for about 6-7 years with the small robotic ones, either through Still or there's, I think, Husqvarna and that have them as well. And then this came about as well. So we've put a lot of focus on that. So
have you dealt with them a fair bit, Jaimee, on site?
We actually, I haven't personally used it or dealt with it. As I say, kind of being more on the landscaping side of things, I don't tend to do a lot of the turf maintenance. I might do a lot of the turf installation, but not as much of the maintenance. But I have seen it flying around on site before.
Any arguments with it?
No,
that
honestly,
it's gone AWOL?
No, not at all. Just the weirdest part about it is when you drive past it, because it still has a seat attached to it, obviously. It needs it. So the weird part is when you drive past and you see it moving with its seat and there's just no one in there. It just looks really, it looks really weird. You're like, for a second, oh no, it's okay. It's the robot one sort of thing. So but no, it's really cool. It's going to be awesome for that site in particular, as Mitchell said. Yeah.
So Mitchell, you said you got one at the moment. Is that right? Yeah. So how did that relationship come about, bringing it over? Did you approach them?
I think they approached us. So Adam Strathan, one of our contract managers who looks after the Essendon Fields contract, he's quite the whiz in this aspect, and he's been at the forefront for a lot of our opportunities and advancements in technology. And I don't know if it was him that reached out to them or they reached out to him, but he'd built up that relationship and had been in the pipeline for, like I said, about 1.5 years now altogether. And then, we trialled it out, did a long, rigorous trial work. Obviously, had to make sure that Essendon Fields and the airport component of them were happy with it. And they're really excited by not only what it's doing now, but how we can obviously utilise that labour to provide greater value, I think, and not worry about just mowing more basic areas. So, and
how do you find the comparison with having obviously someone riding it versus the cost with the autonomous mowers? It's
not bad. I think it's probably after the year 2 to 2.5 year mark that obviously you'll get your returns on it. It is quite a big investment. They are very expensive, as you can imagine.
I'm assuming they would,
because the unit itself maybe could be 60 grand, but the technology that's on it is that plus more as well. So it is a large investment, but for us, we see it is the future. And I think if you look what's happening over in the States, they generally around 5 to 6 years in front of us with everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they've obviously had robotic mowers at this extent for quite a few years now, particularly on golf courses. You look at it, they've got fairway mowers that are fully robotic. So it's only a matter of time. So for us, we just obviously want to make sure we're at the forefront of it and having the best opportunity for our clients as well. So
Mitchell, what do you reckon the next thing is that we need that's going to be AI powered?
In the landscaping space, there's a few things that are already coming out and they're already there to a certain degree, but I think there's a lot more opportunity with them. I think with GPS systems, there's mapping systems in order to target pests and disease on your turf and turf quality. So I know that some of, I think it's Toro or Rainbird, I think it is, they've got apps in place now, but they're obviously at the early stages. Yeah. That's probably a huge one for us to be able to obviously identify pests and diseases from a granular view, and obviously then massively reduce the amount of chemicals they're using. I think that's going to be a huge. That's probably one of the big forefronts for us that's coming up at the moment. So,
and Jaimee, do you reckon you could see something like that incorporated into your role? Like Definitely. How much easier it would make it, in other words?
Definitely. No, I could see that. And just in the sense of across the sites with different team members, because we're not always working together every single day. We may not always be able to see each other. So it's good to be able to have something like that. And it's always consistent. We're all doing the same, the same thing. We can just look on our phones and go, oh, yep, that's that. And Joe did it last week, so I know that I now need to do it now. Having that kind of an app or something like that, as we're saying, that has everything ready to go. And it's great for new people coming onto the site as well, and, apprentices too. It just sets up a good foundation, I think.
I think it's the way the future's going too. Like we've got ChatGPT, we've got all these things coming through. It's apart from actually someone kneeling down and physically laying the pavers, which you can get machines for, fitting them through a residential backyard might be a bit hard, but it's just the way of the future. So can you see Green by Nature just continuing to bring all this technology in?
100%. I mean, I even see it on a personal level with my fellow colleagues. We're using apps like iNaturalist and things like that to help us with identification, to help us with, aspect of certain plants, potential diseases and pests that are common for a specific plant. So the inner workings, the seed's already planted, but it's nice more pun. That you like that. Yeah. But it's more that, it'll slowly form, I think, and we're only heading in that direction. So
Mitch, what type of projects have you guys got going at the moment that are pretty cool, pretty phenomenal that you're excited about?
In the landscaping space, there's a lot that's coming up with a couple of SM Fields. We've got stuff there with Toyota and that, which it's exciting from an aspect because it's a great client to have. But probably there's a lot happening in our private school sector at the moment. So we've got some huge projects that we're doing that are very exciting, whether it just be the style and design of these projects. We've got one at Allow the Hole, which we're currently doing at the moment, probably another exciting component of that is there's buy-in from the students and from the teachers on the design initiative of that. One that we just completed with the Latrobe Solar Farm as well, not the solar farm itself, but the garden and everything around it as well, which was a really exciting one. It's a unique, obviously, project to work on as well, and we had a really good learning outcomes of that, and hopefully there's a bit more opportunity in that space. So there's a lot we're doing there. We've obviously got we've done historically, and we still are trying to focus a lot on a lot of estate works that we do with the hard and softscapes and some of the design features of working in those estates as well, doing the parks and nature strips as well. So that's a big one for us. We do a lot of that, particularly in the southeast as well. So
not doing the backyards for the houses, more doing the infrastructure, like as you said, like the nature strips,
parklands, wetlands, nature strip areas as well. So those are ones that we've got a lot of history in, and we've got a lot of expertise in, so we like to focus on that. And there is that bit more of artistic flair to it as well with how some of these wetlands and parklands are designed. So
because Super Gardens was doing a lot of that, weren't they? Is that right?
Huge. Yeah. That was at the time it was quite interesting. I think even up till about 3 years ago, our landscape division in the business was probably about twice as big as what it was. But we found as the industry changed, obviously post COVID-19 as well, that got us, it kind of required us to obviously reduce it, reassess it, and now we're obviously looking to go back the other way as well. So it was a huge part of our business. It still is, obviously, but in terms of numbers as well, it's probably about half what it was at that time. So, but it's a lot more viable at the moment, and for us, we're at a position now that we're just looking to expand it again.
Coolabah Turf is an award-winning grower of premium, drought-tolerant, self-repairing instant turf for Victorian residential, council and commercial landscape customers. Create the perfect backyard with your next project. The kind where barefoot kids chase balls and dreams, where family pets run wild and free, and where summer barbecues with friends and neighbours turn into memories that last a lifetime. Get in touch with the friendly crew at Coolabah Turf today. Call 1800 055 515 or visit coolturf.com.au. LV members who mention this ad will get free delivery on their first order.
So on the back end, Mitchell, in terms of running all these type of projects that you do, what type of programs are you using? So, for example, you got your spreadsheets, or have you got these high-tech project management programs? The only reason I'm asking is because people are always looking for something new.
Yeah, so we've got multiple platforms that we use. From a planning component, we've got one that we call InfoBoard, and that's where we do all of our resource and labour planning and obviously job allocation as well. That itself is pretty straightforward. There's a lot of those out there, but the unique thing that we have about that system is that it's got a partnering system called like InfoWAMs, and that's how you get all the data and the reporting that you can create from that, which is quite unique. It's actually even sets up communications to send a text to people where they're working for the next day, who they're working with, what vehicle they might be using, if they're going to go pick up some materials. So those two together are quite impressive, but individually go, okay, that's
Can that talk to the mower? Can that talk to the
I'm sure
mower?
it's coming. I'm sure it's coming. I'm quite nervous for that day.
Oh, exactly. You're going to wake up one morning, go to site, and the mower's going to be going around and say to Mitchell, who set this thing up? No one.
There'll be a mower parked in my office soon, so I'm getting out, I reckon.
No. Well, as you said, the technology, like even in the residential sector, apps for irrigation, lighting, the whole thing, the soil sensors, all that jazz is through the roof. So it's kind of no stopping it, is there?
No, exactly. I think it is quite daunting at times. I think we could all agree, but it's also really exciting at times as well, because I think, particularly in our industry, I think we're coming to that realisation. It's not something that's going to take jobs. It's just going to give people an opportunity to do better, more exciting work, and where they can provide more value as opposed to doing the more tedious stuff that people don't prefer.
Exactly, to focus. So, Jaimee, like yourself, then you can focus on the horticulture side of things and not have to worry about these little things.
Exactly, yeah. Less scheduling and kind of organising of things and more actual implementing the information itself. So
no more talking to the ride on mower.
Exactly. The phone does it for me.
So with that then, what's something that you'd really like to be involved more in on the ground? So, for example, are there any particular sort of plant pellets that you'd really like to incorporate through Essendon Fields or anything like that that's sort of innovative or something new coming through?
Definitely. I've had a couple of conversations with some managers about even just implementing different types of plant varieties, because, I think it's something that a lot of gardeners would say that, there's trends with these plants and we can kind of get stuck in our ways, especially of that English, typical style. So, definitely having discussions about moving different plants and trying to come up and put plants in the garden that could be trending in future, and really setting those standards. So I could definitely see that an app and having that would help us a lot,
And how are the clients? Would they, if you recommend certain type of plant for the area, are they on board with that? Do they receive it well and say, "Yep, whatever you think we need to do to replace it"?
Yeah, for the most part. Definitely the B word, budget, comes into play. But no, it's for the most part, especially if it's something kind of new and something that you can, as a horticulturalist, if you can, talk the talk behind it and let the client know that it's going to be more beneficial and it's actually going to have a longer lifespan in this space, because, in some spaces you will see that your certain hedges and things like that, when you're cutting them down that regularly, they only have like a 10-year lifespan in that space before they start to get really woody. And so, it's about implementing things that have a bit more longevity, I think. And if you can have that conversation with the client, as we do, then, for the most part, they're like, for sure, go for it. Like, let's try it out and see how we go.
So you mentioned before, obviously, about the on-site nursery that you sort of have. How do you set that up? Is it sort of a section out the back that you just bring everything to, or is it something a bit more mobile that you can shift around?
Yeah, well, site to site, it's different on every single one. So a lot of the private schools will just have kind of a little section out the back of things running, you know, little propagation pieces or little transplanting pieces that have been taken out of an area, and we're just holding them in some pots for the meantime until we find a home. And then it does go to a larger scale, like something like Essendon Fields. We have our own personal tree farm out the back. Where,
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we buy in a lot of our capital in Chanticleer pears, and we actually excavate and then put them into the ground with a drip line to keep them and grow them up until they get to a suitable size to actually install. And they sit there for replacements as well. So, you know, if we have something that's been knocked by a truck on the side and we need to replace one, then we go down to the tree farm, get one of the guys to rip it out with the excavator, and we pop it back in. So, yeah, there is that kind of setup, but it is different site to site.
And you got the room for it by the sounds of it. Crikey, like can't do it in dual lock in Bayside.
Yeah, we pretty much have our own full-on tree nursery out there. So, yeah, it's really, really handy.
I think there's about just over 1,000 plants we've got there at the moment. I think like 800. I think it's actually 1,500, but 800 of those are tree stock. So
yeah. And probably 80% of them are just pears.
Yeah, wow. they love their ornamental pears there.
Yeah.
Wow. So Jaimee, where can you see the industry going? So obviously we've spoken about the technology side of things. Where would you like it to go in terms of horticulture? Like what would you like to see more introduced?
Well, I think we are really going in a good direction, like I mentioned before, with the sustainability of implementing more natives in certain areas. You know, I understand that it's not always going to be native, and people have their you know, certain flavour that they like with things, but it is important for us to implement natives into almost all of our spaces, just to keep a consistency in our ecosystem. I mean, there's many reasons. It's going to help our ecosystem. It helps the symbiosis, but also it's easier for us in a gardener sense, because these things, they belong here. They don't need as much fertilizer. They don't need as much care. They don't get as many pests. So I think I would love to see things heading in that direction, and I think there is a lot of room for that. It's just about showing people the beautiful side of these natives that they maybe haven't seen, because in a lot of spaces they're left to go wild, as opposed to having that shapely look like a lot of people can like in these commercial spaces, let's say.
I wanted to ask this before, if you start seeing that some sections of the plants are really struggling or something's going on, how do you maintain and fix it? So, for example, would you remove it? Would you look at the soil? Do you condition it? Do you rectify? How do you rectify issues like that might come up?
Yeah, so definitely, as you just mentioned, though, that is a part of it, looking at the soil, looking at the plant, looking at the aspect, ensuring that the irrigation is, you know, as it should be. But also what comes into play is, was it planted as it should have been? You know, is it just making sure that those, as I said before, that consistency is across the board. Because sometimes, you know, it may be that it was just planted a little bit too shallow and there's a little bit of root showing, and, you know, it's about kind of ensuring that consistency is there. But that's it. I go in and there's a slew of problems it could be, but it's really about, that diagnosis, which, as we said, the apps could really help with that, just to make sure that everyone's kind of in the same boat.
Always comes back to the apps.
It doesn't it? Nowadays.
Our phones have got so many apps on there. It's just folders and folders. I even say to my guys, I'm like, we got app for this now, this. They're like, yeah, all right.
I pretty much have a Green by Nature folder in my phone, because we have so many little apps that we have to use. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So, Mitchell, what's next for Green by Nature? Where can you see it going?
For us, we've got some pretty hefty targets for obviously growth, and obviously new clientele and value. So I think for us, like I said at the start, we've had the last 3 or 4 years of figuring it out, how we are as a business and what we should focus and strategize on. I think now that we've kind of set that up, it's probably about growth and finding more opportunities. So we've got targets to almost double in size, which is pretty full on. So
Mitchell, that's huge.
Yeah. So, but I think we really understand the type of clients we want to work with. Yeah. Clients who really want to get a lot of value out of us as well, and we're just going to focus a lot more on those. Whereas traditionally we might have worked on an array of different types of jobs and clients that we had. So, I think for us, being the really high-end commercial provider is what our key target is now for sure. So I think in each sector that we have, whether it be landscaping or sports turf or grounds maintenance, I think we know the kind of people we want to work with and hopefully want to work with us, and obviously which kind of targets we want. So we want to obviously get a lot bigger in the university space, where we've got, I think it's about 14 unis that we work with across the country. That for us, they're the kind of clients we really like to work with, because not only just from your fixed contract, maintenance contract, but they like to provide a lot more value to the unis. Obviously for them, it's a selling piece to get new students in as well. So we're at the forefront of that, and that's really exciting to work with those kind of clients.
Yeah,
so
cool.
Private schools is a big one for us. Like I said, sports is a huge one for us, because it's you get a lot of pride in working with those kind of clubs and organisations, because you get to flick on and watch it on the telly. So that gives us a lot of joy. So those kind of are the avenues that we want to put probably more focus in going forward.
And Jaimee, this might be something for you in terms of the differences from maintaining gardens to here versus New Zealand, even though I know you haven't been there yet, you're Green by Nature, but what are the main differences? So, for example, with the climate, with the vegetation they have, like from the New Zealand arm of this, what's the feedback, as in, is it quite different to Australia?
Definitely, there is a lot of differences there. I mean, climate is one of the bigger ones, having, a lot of a colder snap in winter and getting a lot more frost than we do in that sense. But it's funny, they actually do have, going back as regularly as I do to go and see family, that we do have a lot of similar plants. They have a lot of South African and English mixtures of plants in New Zealand as well. And they do have a couple of Australian natives popped around, I've noticed, which is funny. Like my nana had 2 prostrate grevilleas in her backyard, which I thought was interesting. But yeah, there is definitely a mixture of similar plants in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And their natives do have a very similar kind of habit and flowering pattern to ours. But yeah, it's mostly just that cold snap that can really get them. So you have to be a bit more mindful in New Zealand during the winter periods of your hedges and things like that. Like, even your ficuses and things like that over there. You just have to be a bit more mindful of them getting a bit of frost burn on them.
Yeah.
But beyond that, you'd be amazed. It's actually very similar. Having the coastal plants that they do, lots of salt bush and things like that over there as well. So you'd be surprised. It's actually a pretty similar kind of climate in terms of plants to Australia.
And that obviously, I was just thinking then when you said if some of the plants are doing well over there as well, I wonder if it's easy to introduce them between the two countries, obviously considering because we are so close, and there may be not as much control sort of thing as in the biocontrol over it, or
yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, there is a lot of crossover there. I think you could find that especially if you're doing it in the warmer months. I don't know so much about the colder months with how much colder it can be there, especially further down south. But yeah, definitely there's a lot of crossover there.
So Mitchell, one last question before we go. What's something you'd love to see come into the industry? So when I say that, whether it's AI or whether it's sort of bringing in more just some sort of technology, anything in particular that you could see that will make your life easier for Green by Nature?
Yeah, I think, I know we've gone on a bit. I think the technology component is huge. I think that's probably the biggest thing for us, because not only making our jobs easier, but also giving people more of an opportunity to better utilise their time during the day. So whether it be through robotics or new systems and processes or even cultural changes in the industry, I think that for me, I think innovation is certainly the biggest focus point. I think it's certainly, like we touched on before, it's coming. So for us as a business, we definitely want to be at the forefront of that. So who knows exactly what form or shape it's in, but it's certainly
always
coming.
growing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jaimee, what's your favourite plant at the moment?
Ooh.
Something that you're just loving. It could be a few.
I was going to say, well, I was just at one of our private schools, and the cyclamens are looking amazing there at the moment. They're just popping up gorgeously. We also have some really beautiful azaleas coming up at the moment. Our azaleas are actually looking really, really nice. We've just gone through a big fertilise with a lot of them on most of our sites, fertilising them with urea, which boosts the perfect for azaleas, and an acidic fertilizer that we use in the company called Kahuna. So giving them a good boost. But yeah, just loving the azaleas at the moment. I personally love dwarf azaleas. We have a lot at one of our sites, the Wargraves as well, and just beautiful. Like the colours that are coming up on them at the moment are gorgeous. But I would say those two are some of my favourites at the moment. And I'm a native girl, so pretty much throw any native at me and I'm going to love it. So
bring it on. Well, bring it on.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, guys, thank you very much for coming in, Jaimee, Mitchell. Looking forward to seeing what comes on with Green by Nature. But yeah, once again, thanks for joining us here on The Front Garden.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode of The Front Garden, brought to you by Landscaping Victoria, sponsored by Coolabah Turf, proud supporters of the landscaping industry. Let's keep this community growing together. I'm Adam Hompas. Thank you for listening and catch you next time on The Front Garden.